taking place now around the assessments and around the Common Core, are these game changers? Do you see them really taking us to a very different place in the quality of education of our kids and in the system?
So thank you, Renee, and good afternoon. It's great to be here. Great to get reacquainted with the many policy challenges facing California. Having lived here for 20 years myself, I left in 2000. I think I left just as Linda was coming. So you improved when you got Linda instead of me. But I would say that I saw California go through its deterioration. I came in 1981, as I said, when community college was still free, and California was still very high in the rankings of per pupil spending. By the time I left, we were very far from the top in per pupil spending, and public education, including higher education, was in free fall. I am not a believer that the Common Core will be a game changer. And I say that as a person who supports the Common Core. I think it is essential to have clear academic standards. I think it's a very important step for equity. The reason why I believe it will not be a game changer is because I have no confidence at all that it will be implemented properly. I am already seeing evidence in New York State that implemented the assessments before they did any work to ensure that the teachers were trained or the students were exposed to the curriculum, how poorly this can be done. And I have no doubt that this will continue to happen because it's part of a larger problem. The larger problem is that we have been using assessment inappropriately throughout this country since No Child Left Behind. Now, when people hear that, they take that as an argument against assessment. I am not against assessment. We absolutely must assess if we want to know how well our students are doing, or in fact they prepared for college or career or whatever else. But we have been using assessment largely for the purpose of ranking students and ranking schools. Ranking someone is not helping them. To tell a student that they are low or to tell a school that they are failing and then not provide guidance about what they need to do to improve is not a strategy for success. This is exactly what we've been doing throughout the country. And a big part of what's wrong is our policymakers continue to believe that designing the right assessment is what's going to improve our schools. Now, I want to refer you to an article by Michael Fullen that was written 2 years ago on drivers of reform. And in the article, Michael makes the case that if you look at the countries that have made the most progress in the last several years, they are relying on different drivers, and high-stakes testing is not one of them. They're focused on capacity building in schools. And let me illustrate how that works in Ontario, Canada, but more specifically Toronto, which is the largest urban district in Canada and has the greatest number of high-poverty schools, and has also had the greatest improvement over the last several years. Capacity building in Canada means that when a school is not performing, based on a state assessment or provincial assessment, they then send experts in to go and figure out why and what needs to be done differently. And then they focus their professional development on precisely the areas where the students need help. Now, that sounds logical, but it's not what we do. Right? That is, we tell a school they're failing, and the operative assumption is that pressure and humiliation will lead to improvement. Right? So, state of Florida puts letter grades on schools, something New York State has now adopted, so you can go to an A school all the way down to an F school. The only strategy they have in place for an F school is school closure. Right? Even though they're growing F schools in New York. Right? And all you have to do is look at those schools and you would find that those schools were set up to fail because they were overpopulated with the most disadvantaged students and staffed by the least prepared teachers. I am not a believer that this is going to change under the Common Core. In fact, I believe that the work that needs to be done to develop the curriculum and prepare the teachers, particularly in schools that are serving large numbers of English language learners and our poorer students, hasn't even started. So I am not only skeptical, I am highly critical of this whole strategy, because what I see happening over and over again is we keep thinking that simply by raising the standards, we will have accomplished something. And the hard work is in going into those schools and figuring out what needs to be done to change them. We have examples of this happening now across the country, of schools that improved. And I'll say it again, we should be learning from those examples.
Deb, you've been sitting with the Smarter Balanced Consortium